Thank you everyone for taking the time to sit in this training. Today, I'm going to go over the basics of VSocial Publisher. We built Publisher and released it about a few weeks ago to really bring VSocial up to speed on content publishing capabilities. The goal being that all content will from now on be authored inside of Publisher, and all stakeholders involved will be approving the content, will do so from within the tool. So this is a rough outline of the topics that I'm going to go over today. First, I'll give a brief introduction to what Publisher is, what it replaces, and what it will be used for. Second, I will move on to go over a key concept for Publisher, and that is workflows. Publisher was built with workflows being a key component during the design and development. Next, I'll go through the content creation screens that content authors will be using on a day-to-day basis. I'll touch on what content types are supported. Moving on, I'll introduce what a content approver will see and how they will go about approving or rejecting content. Next, I'll show some of the content planning tools that we've built into Publisher, including a timeline view and a content calendar. Finally, I'll demonstrate a couple of examples using a live environment so you can see just how the tool works. So let's get started. What is Publisher? So Publisher is a new module that we've built into VSocial that sits alongside of Community Manager. And the primary purpose of Publisher is for social content publishing. So those of you who are familiar with VSocial Community Manager, up until now, you would be able to author content using a screen that looks something similar to this, and this is at the top of the middle column of the screen above all the conversations. And we support things like status messages, photos, links, videos. But Publisher, which is shown a screenshot on the right here, will replace this functionality. And going forward, all content will need to be authored and published through Publisher. So what are some of the key features of Publisher? Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, a very key component to Publisher is workflows. And we've built workflows to be as flexible as possible. So this would allow organizations who are using Publisher for creating social content to be as strict or lenient as they need to be. And this refers to how content is approved by various stakeholders. Second, the workflow approval processes are transparent at each step of the way. So whoever is accessing Publisher will be able to know where the content is in the workflow, who is it waiting on for approval, who authored it, who rejected it, etc. And most importantly, Publisher will take care of the hard work of determining who needs to review and approve or reject the content. Before Publisher was released, the content author who would be creating content in Community Manager would either be able to publish right away, or they would need to select from a list of names who to assign the content to for approval. And that could be quite time consuming to determine who needs to be assigned the content. So Publisher will handle this for the content authors. One of the features that was requested from the VSocial team is to be able to create content for multiple social channels in one go. So very often when a content author is creating content for a client, they may want to create similar content to be published to both the brand's Facebook and Twitter accounts, for example. So now Publisher allows for this grouping of the content. And the content that's associated with that group will all be sent through the workflow for approval together. And once content is loaded into the system, the content team will be able to view the approved content in either a timeline view or a content calendar, and that can help with determining how well the brand's social channels are covered in content. So you can see very clearly if there's any holes in your week or month, so that you'll be able to create content for those days. Currently, Facebook and Twitter are supported. We are planning on adding additional networks as time will go on. Okay. So let's get on with workflows, and I have several screens on workflows because it's very important that everybody understands how Publisher deals with workflows. Okay, so content workflows is defined. A workflow is defined with one or more social channels. So if your brand has, let's say, 2 Facebook pages and 2 Twitter accounts, we would define the workflow for that brand to encompass all 4 of those channels, if relevant. And then we have 4 roles, 4 user roles that we can configure for the workflow. The first role being obviously that of the content author, and we can have 1 or more individuals fulfilling that role. And then we have up to 3 levels of approvers. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, these are optional. Some workflows we may choose not to have any approvers, but some you may decide to have 1, 2, or even 3 levels of approvers. And this tool allows for that level of flexibility. Now, at each level of approvals, you're able to set 1 or more people to satisfy that role. And if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 individuals fulfilling the level 1 approver role, the system will only need 1 of those individuals to approve or reject the content. Okay, so it doesn't mean that all 3 users need to approve the content before it will then get pushed to the next level. Okay, a rejection at any step of the way will be sent back to the content authors for revisions. And whoever is rejecting the content, they need to provide a reason, right? So we won't let them click on reject without providing some sort of reason. And this could be, ideally it would be best if it's as detailed as possible. Is the schedule wrong? Are there misspellings, capitalization issues, or just general content issues? And everybody who touched the content will be sent a notification if a rejection occurs. So for example, content author creates the content, level 1 approves, level 2 approves, but at level 3, somebody rejects the content. Everybody at each step of the way will receive notification letting them know that the content was rejected, but then it's up to the content author to make the revisions. Okay, so here's, I'm going to share with you 2 very quick flowcharts to show you just how that approval process works. So this first one, we have approvers configured for each of the 3 levels. Content is authored by the community manager, the content author. They submit the content, and the system will notify the 1 or more individuals who are configured at level 1 that this content needs to be reviewed. If one of those approvers decides to reject the content, it will get sent back to the content author for revisions. Or if one of those approvers accepts the content, then it will get sent on to level 2. And likewise, the process will continue. Rejections will get sent all the way back to the content authors, or approvals will move on to level 3. Finally, as long as level 3 approves, it will then either get published right away or published according to the schedule configured. Okay. The second example flowchart shows just a single level being configured. So level 2 and 3 are set to auto approve. Okay, so we have not configured any users to fulfill the approver level 2 or 3. Okay, and I have a feeling that this will probably be the most common configuration for the majority of the workflows that y'all will create, just having a single step of approval. But again, we'll see how it goes, and the system will allow you to have just 1 level or 2 levels or even 3 levels. Okay. All right, let's go on to creating content. So when the workflow is created and we've configured who has the relevant rights, the content authors, once they log into VSocial and access the Publisher tab, they will be shown a list of the workflows that they have access to. This section at the top here is just an infographic showing the high level how content can be created. But at this section below, this is where we will list the various workflows that user has access to. Okay, now in this screenshot, this user has access to just two workflows: product announcements and Acme Industries marketing. The content author would then need to select one of those workflows. In this case, we're selecting Acme Industries marketing. Now, once selected, the user will be brought to the composer screen, and this is where where the tool will allow the content author to create the content for the various social channels that are configured for that workflow. Now on the top left here, this is where we show the social channels that are configured for the workflow. In this case, we have two. We have a Facebook page, Acme Industries, and we have a Twitter account, Acme IND. Now, you may notice that there's this Add Social Channel button or link below the list of the social channels. This will allow the content author to add duplicates of the social channels that are supported for that workflow. And this can be useful if you are creating context-similar content to be published on the same channel. So for example, to demonstrate this, I added 3 more of the Facebook page. Okay. Now, one use case of this, and I'll demonstrate this when we show the demos near the end of this webinar. You may be managing a regional Facebook page where you have users from many different countries and many different language capabilities. So by doing this, you would be able to create content in English, content in Korean, content in Bahasa, content in Thai, and then use the Facebook audience limiting functionality to restrict who can see that content based on their country or language capabilities. Okay, that would be one reason for using this add social channel function. Now, keep in mind, this is not meant for content teams to create what is called a content calendar, either a week's worth of content or a month's worth of content for these social channels. The reason being, when you submit the content that's been authored for all of these social channels, as a group, they will be sent along through the workflow. Okay, and at any step of the way, one of the approvers could reject that content, and then all of it will get sent back to the content author. Okay, so that could be quite troublesome if you're creating content for the whole week, for example, and Friday's content has the spelling error, and then the whole week gets rejected. So it's best practice is to create, think of it as you're creating different content campaigns in each setting, right? So maybe you would create Monday's content on these 2 channels, click submit, that would go through the workflow, and then you go back and create Tuesday's content for these 2 channels. Okay. Now at the bottom of the composer screen, the system shows who is configured at each of the levels of approvers, along with their email addresses. This is information for the content author, just so they know who will be getting notified that approvals will need to be given. And it's also good in case the content author is creating content that needs to urgently get published. This lets them know who they need to chase, right? Pick up the phone and give that person a call or send them an email, just to remind them that they need to approve this content urgently. Okay. Now, the nuts and bolts of this screen is the content work area, and this is where you put in the text, you attach the various media like images, video, or links. This section here is where you specify the schedule for when this specific post needs to be published. There are two options. One is when approved. So once all the approvals are obtained, it will be published when the last one is approved. Or you can specify a date and time of when it should be published in the future. And at the bottom here, this is where we have the limit audience and feed targeting for Facebook only. Twitter doesn't support this. Okay. Now this little checkbox here, unpublish this post, this is specifically used for creating feed stories that will not be published for everyone to see, but will be used for Facebook ads. Okay. Now I won't be showing an example of that in today's training, but just to let you know that that feature is supported. In this case, we've added some text. We have attached a photo, and I'm scheduling it for the 27th of October, 8:15 a.m. Okay. Now, when you're creating content for the various social channels, you'll notice that there are some icons to the left of each of the tabs here. Okay. There are currently two icons. One is a check mark and one is a pencil. Check mark means you've saved the content. Okay, you haven't submitted for approval, but you've saved it. It's in the database. You can go away and come back later and continue working on it if you wish. But when the pencil is shown, the content is not saved. Okay, so if you leave, shut down your computer and you come back, that content will be lost. So it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, the submit button located at the bottom of the composer screen will not be clickable. It'll be kind of grayed out a bit until all of the content has been saved into the system. Okay, and then the submit button will be made available for you. Okay, now let's say the content author created the content and submitted. Let's see how the approvers will log into the system and work on the content that's waiting for their approval. Now here we have a screenshot of the workflow subtab inside of Publisher. Okay, this is where any user that has access to the workflow will be able to see content that is in the workflow, so to speak. Okay, now in this case, this one is pending approval. So like many of the tools in VSocial, the left column is reserved primarily for filtering. And this is where you can filter the list of pending content, or any content really, depending on the status. So you can say, show me all drafts, show me all content that's been submitted and waiting for approval. We call that pending. Or, and this is important for content approvers, they can immediately check this checkbox here and show me all the content that is waiting for my approval, right? Because at the end of the day, that's really what content approvers are going to be interested in. And finally, you can also say, or you can also filter the view to show you all content that's already approved and scheduled. And now from this view, you'll be able to unapprove the content if need be, as content gets changed from time to time. Okay, the content workflow filter at the bottom here. This is just so you, in case a user has access to multiple workflows, they'll be able to filter the view based on content linked to whatever workflow they want to view. Okay, now the main section here is where we show the content in the workflow. Now notice here, this is a grouping of content. Okay, and we have two posts here. This is a Facebook post and this is a tweet. And this area here shows the approval status of that group of content. Okay, so in this case, it was authored by Chris, but it's still waiting on level 1, 2, and 3. Well, level 3 is a auto approval in this case. Okay, now it's just showing the different variations of that approval status box depending on where it is in the state. So in this case, this first screenshot, it shows that it's waiting for all approvals. Now when somebody from level 1 approves the content or clicks on the accept, it will then show that level 1 approved, who approved it, in this case my user approved it, and now it's waiting on level 2. Now once level 2 comes in and clicks accept, it will then complete this workflow in this case because level 3 is set to auto approve. Okay. Now if at any step of the way reject is clicked, the rejector will need to type in the reason, click submit, and then the system will refresh to show that it has indeed been rejected. Okay. All right, now let's move on to the two different planning tools that we have, content planning tools. This first one is the timeline view. This is where we'll just show all the approved content ordered by time that it needs to be published. Okay, so in this case, we are showing content that will be published closest to today, and then as you go down, as you scroll down, it will go further into the future. Okay. Now this view, we are not showing the content grouped together according to the workflow, because you can actually set different publish schedules for each of the content that you're creating. Okay, so remember early on the example of the Facebook post and the Twitter post. You don't have to schedule them both to be published at the same time. Okay, there may be reasons that you need to publish on the Facebook page at 10 a.m., but Twitter you'll publish at 5 p.m. Maybe that's when you've determined that you'll get the most amount of engagement on those two networks. Okay, in many cases you may publish them at the same time, but just to let you know that the system does allow you that flexibility. So the timeline view will show them separated according to when they are scheduled. Okay. If you click on the calendar link at the top, this is the filtering and the listing. And we also show the who approved at what level. Okay. Now if you click on the calendar view, we will show in a calendar, in a month calendar rendering, when content is scheduled to be published. Okay. Again, on the left we have the filter. In this case, we have 2 posts scheduled on the 22nd. Okay. Now when you click on one of those, we will actually show you a preview of the content on the left here, and then what the approval history is for that content. Okay. All right, now let's move on to a few of the examples. I'll actually be logging into a live environment to show you some of these examples. But first, let me introduce the different parties involved. So a lot of the time in my training, I use a fake company called Acme Industries. And in this case, it's a gear manufacturer. They have active communities on Facebook and Twitter. And this individual here, Peter, is the marketing manager. Now, he plays an important part in the content approval strategy for Acme, since he is set to be level 2 in the workflow. These are just some screenshots of what Acme looks like in Facebook and Twitter. Okay. Now on the agency side, we have a company called Social Speak, and they are Acme's social media marketing firm. And they are tasked with creating content and managing the communities for Acme Industries. Now, for today's training, we have community managers Chris and Steve, and then their team leader is John. Okay, so the way that we've configured the workflow for Acme is content creation is done by Chris and Steve, level 1 approval is done by John, and then level 2 is Peter from Acme. Okay, we will not have a level 3. Okay, so the first case that I'll show is just simply how a rejection works. So Chris will create content and submit for approval, but there are a couple spelling errors. Right? Simple case of spelling errors. And John, the diligent supervisor of the content team, will see those errors and he will reject the content. Okay. The second case is I'll show a very common use case for many content teams, and that's how to create an advanced link post on Facebook. and that's complete with a custom image, a call to action, and customized URL, caption, title, and description field. Okay. Before Publisher came around with VSocial, VSocial did not support creating this kind of content. You'd actually have to go into Facebook's Power Editor to do this. Okay. Finally, the third case that we'll show is how we can use audience limiting for Facebook specifically. And in this case, I will show content that is authored in English and in French, and how that audience limiting functionality works. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is to log into VSocial. Do that with your Facebook account. Now, once you log in, you may notice that there is a new tab called Publisher. Once you click on that, Publisher will load up. Now, remember from the presentation, there's a nice little infographic here. You can collapse that if you want. You don't have to see that. But here we have two different workflows configured that I have access to. For this demonstration, I'll click on Acme Industries Marketing. All right, so now the Composer screen shows the two social channels, Acme Industries Facebook and Acme IND Twitter, are shown here. You can click to cycle through the two of these. Now notice the Composer section changes depending on the social network type. So Facebook allows you to do photo, video, and links, and audience limiting and feed targeting, whereas Twitter doesn't allow all of that. Twitter just allows you to attach an image and schedule. Okay, so in this case, I will author content for both the Facebook and Twitter account, and this is where I will have the misspelling. So let me go to Word here, where I have the content already created. So I'll type that in there. I will select the image that I want to attach, click Browse, select Case 1 JPEG. Okay, it's uploading. Now, this is the image that I want to post. For the purposes of today, I will set the schedule to later. Maybe I'll set it for Tuesday the 11th at 4 p.m. Singapore time. Right? We'll show the times in the time zone that is configured in your browser. Okay. Now I'll leave these all unset because I just want to create the content. Now I can preview the post, and this will give you a pretty good indication on what it will look like once it's published, in this case on Facebook. Okay, just click the X there to hide the preview. Now let me click on the Save button. This will actually store this post into the database, and now we have the check mark shown on the left. Now let's go ahead and create the content for Twitter. I will copy the same content there. We're at 0 characters already, but actually I want to attach the photo as well. So let me go to Browse and select the JPEG. Now once it's uploaded, we'll notice that the system now will show me that I'm 23 characters too many. Right? So Twitter, as you know, only allows you to publish 140 characters. Now because I attached a photo, Twitter will convert that photo into a URL that takes 23 characters. Okay, so I will need to shorten this text if I want to publish the photo as well. So I'll just keep it simple and remove the second sentence there. Now we're at 43 characters left, so that's good. Again, I'll change the schedule to, let's say, the 11th at 1 p.m. Okay, click Save. Now notice the Submit button is a little grayed out. The orange is not as prominent as the other call to actions. Once I click OK, it's saving. Now Submit becomes activated. Okay, and as we can see here, John Smith is the level 1 approver, and Peter Johnson's level 2 approver. Okay, so let me go ahead and click Submit. And now it'll send me to the Workflow sub-tab here, and I can see that it is in the pending approval status, and it's waiting for everybody to log in and deal with it. So let me switch my browser over to John's browser. So here I'm logged in as John. And let me refresh this view. Okay, so now this is the content that we just created. Okay, this is the Facebook post is scheduled for the 11th of November, and this is the tweet, and it's waiting on me. Okay, but here we go. We've got two misspelled words. Oh dear. All right, so let me click reject, and I'll say, please check your spelling. Click submit. Yes, I want to reject. Rejecting, and now it's in rejection mode. The text is shown there that I just typed in. Now, the content author will receive a notification by email that the content was rejected, but in the spirit of moving on, I'll just go back to the content author's screen, click on drafts, click update, refresh the view, and we'll see that this post is now rejected, and the button's changed to edit. Okay, so this means I can click on it, and then I will be able to make the changes. Okay, so this at the top here, it'll show what the rejection message was. Please check your spelling. And let me go ahead and fix it. Formed. Okay. Click save. All right. The tweet was okay because I removed that second sentence, and I'll go ahead and submit through the workflow again. All right. So now let me switch back to John. Click update, waiting for my approval. And we can see, good, formed and work is now fixed. I'll go ahead and accept the content. Okay. So now we can see the status updates. A little green icon here shows, the check mark shows that John approved it. And now it's waiting on level 2, which is Peter. Okay. So let me switch to Firefox where I have Peter logged in. Let me refresh the view, waiting for my approval was checked. And we can see that now this is the content that's waiting for Peter's approval. And that's a little slow, so the image is not loading, but it is in the system. So I'll go ahead and accept it. And now this will, since there's no level 3, it's auto-approved, so that gets automatically approved. Now, we can click on the content calendar subtab here, and the default view is the calendar. And we can see on the 11th of November, we have 2 pieces of content that is approved and scheduled. I can select one of them, and I can actually see a preview of that content. This is the tweet at, I think it was 11 o'clock, or no, 1 p.m. The second one is 4 p.m. For the Facebook post. Likewise, I can click on the timeline view, and I'll see all that content. Okay, I have another example from the earlier training, but if we scroll down to the 11th, we have the 1 p.m. Tweet and the 4 p.m. Facebook post. All right, so that's the first case, a simple rejection approval example. So let's go ahead and move on to the second example, and that's where we want to create a advanced Facebook link post. Okay, so I'm logged in as Chris, the content creator. Click on Compose, and I'll select the same workflow. All right, now in this case, I don't want to publish to Twitter. I just want to publish to Facebook. So I'll go ahead and click the little X next to the social channel, the Twitter social channel, Acme IND, since I'm not interested in creating content for that. Yes. Okay, good. So now I'm only creating content for the Facebook page. Now let me go to Word, and here we go, link post, training case 2. So let me go ahead and put in my paragraph here. Then I will select the link option. Okay, so this is where I will put in the Wikipedia article. In this case, I want to share a Wikipedia article, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/gear. Okay, click outside of that. The system will now go and crawl information from that URL and pre-fill the thumbnail, the title, the URL, and description. Now, let's go ahead and change the image first. So I'm going to click the upload your own image underneath the thumbnail. Select case 2, open. Okay, so now it's uploading, and give it a second. It will refresh the thumbnail. Any minute now. Okay. Okay, should have updated that. Let's go ahead and change the title. Let me change the URL. Maybe I just want to show it's Wikipedia. Ah, good. Okay, so the thumbnail changed. Maybe I just want to show that it's Wikipedia. I don't need to show the very long URL. And this will be very important if you're actually posting a double-click URL, for example, which has a lot of different URL parameters. You don't want people to see that. Okay, and the description I can also modify as well. Maybe I'll just edit that. Okay, call to action. I'm going to select Learn More. And then schedule, I'm happy with when approved. I'll just leave that be, and I'll click Save. Yep, confirm that I want to save it. Successfully saved. All right. Now let me go ahead and click Submit. Okay. So this will send it through the process. Now there's some tweaking that we have to do in the system because Facebook link posts, depending on the size of the image that you upload for the link, it may be this small thumbnail or it may be a very large image. Now in this case, this image is large enough, so we clearly need to tweak some settings on Publisher, but once it's published, it will show the full-size image. So let me go ahead and go through the approval process here just to show you what it looks like once it's published. So here I am, John, level 1. I'll accept. Okay, and then let me go to Firefox to Peter, go back to workflow, select waiting for my approval, click update. Okay, now this is the content that is waiting for Peter. He clicks accept. Now remember, I selected when approved for the schedule. Okay, so this will take slightly longer to complete the accept operation because it's actually communicating with Facebook right now and is publishing it in real time. Okay, so now successfully approved the post. It's been published. So we can actually go back to Facebook, go to Acme Industries. Okay, and this is the post that we just published 17 seconds ago. Okay, and we can see here the large image is shown. The customized title, URL, and the shortened description is shown, as well as the Learn More call to action. Click on that, it'll open up a new tab to the original Wikipedia article that we wanted to share. Okay, that's pretty straightforward how to create a advanced link post. Okay, so let's go ahead with use case 3, where we want to make use of audience limiting for Facebook. Okay, let me go back to the content creator, go to Compose, Acme Industries workflow. Again, I'm not interested in posting to Twitter, so I'll remove the Twitter account. But I will add another Facebook account. Same page, Acme Industries, but I'll duplicate it. Click on Add Social Channel, Acme Industries Facebook. Okay, so the first one I activated. Let me go back to Word here, and I've got the English text. Paste. Okay, and this is just going to be a simple photo post. So I'll select JPEG on my hard disk. Okay, that's the post. Again, schedule a post when approved. Now, audience limit, add audience limit. So I'll click on that, and in this case, I'll say language, and I will type in English, English all. All right. Click save. All right, so that's done. Now we'll go to the second one, and this is where I will put in the French content. Now I used Google Translate for this French, so it may not be perfect French, so forgive me for that. Select the photo that I want to upload. So again, you can do a completely different image if you want, in case you have text on the image. So you might want to have different languages on text. In this case, I'm selecting the same photo to show. Add audience limit, language, and here I will select French all. Okay, click Save. Okay. All right, now let's submit it for approval. Okay, so now it's in the workflow. Let me switch over to John, update the view, scheduled when approved. Now this is the English content. If you move your mouse over the little icon here, the little world icon, we can see that this is shared with English all. So we will show the audience limiting or the newsfeed targeting in the little tooltip when you move your mouse over the world icon here. Likewise, scroll down. This is the French content. Same Facebook page, but in this case, you mouse over and it's shared with French all. Okay, so let me go ahead and click Accept. Okay, and then finally, let me go over to Peter. Update the view. Okay, the image is not loading. Okay, there it is. And let me go ahead and accept. Now again, this will be publishing in real time because I don't have a schedule date or time for these posts. Okay, good. So now let's go back to my Facebook account where my settings are in English. Okay, so let's refresh this. Now this is the post that we just authored in English. Okay, scroll down. Hold on, wait for that to load. Facebook is being slow. Okay, so here we can see only one of this old building in English. Now, if I switch over to John Smith, who has French in his Facebook settings, okay, let me refresh this view. We can see the French content is shown, okay, and not the English. Okay, that was the previous example. All right. Okay. Now, if you're an admin on the page, I can switch over to Manage Page with Business Manager, and I will be able to see all the content, right? Because now I'm an admin. So here's the French content. Scroll down. Here's the English content. Okay. And again, you can put your mouse over the little gear here, and it will show you what settings were used in publishing. Right. Right. It's shared with French or Français, France and Canada. All right, so that's pretty much the end of the training.